I'm not the chief everything officer. I'm like the keeping people happy officer.
Yeah. I'd love to work in your company. You know what I mean? So you were dad first before you're an entrepreneur?
Now I am.
If you're watching, kids, I'm sure you're delighted with that reference.
Our motto was like, if it's not good enough for my kids, it's not good enough for yours.
Excellent answer.
Actually, some of the best conversations I had were with entrepreneurs that had failed. I must come off like a creepy stalker.
Koita.
I like my philosophy of I feel like you work for your employees. Quality product or company profit. Like selling milk versus $250 million defense programs are very different. You know, if you don't have a lot of women on your leadership team, something's wrong.
It's good insight.
Yeah.
There we go.
The number one thing is to listen to your consumers. As cliche as that sounds, I can do anything and I will get it done.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inside Track with me, Luca Allam. I am joined by CEO and founder of Koita Foods. Mustafa Koita, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you a morning person?
I am a morning person.
What time did you get up this morning?
5:30. Went to spin class.
Okay, all right.
Sweated out a little bit, and then I came here.
Is that normal for a CEO? Is that what CEOs all do? Do you have a
think we need
spin
to.
class together? You'll hang out at 5:30 in the
I
morning?
think we need to. We got to sweat it all out, you
Yeah.
know, at the start of the day.
Look, I got to ask you, Koita. It's an unusual name, but a very catchy name. What does it mean?
Well, I'm glad you find it catchy. Koita is actually my great-great-grandfather's, name, and he grew up in India and used to have a fishing shop back in the days. And there's a knife called a Koita blade. It's like round and super sharp to scale the fish, and that's called the Koita blade. So they named him Koita.
And have you carried on the practice?
I have nothing to do with fishing. I try and dabble in it every once in a while. I suck at fishing, to be quite honest.
And there's an American accent there, so talk to me about that. How long
so-
have you been in the States?
Well, I was born in New Jersey. My parents migrated to the U.S. in the 60s. But I grew up in Chicago and New York City most of my life.
The Windy City. What's that like? What's Chicago like?
It's cold. It's super cold. But I like it. Like the culture is a little bit of a mix between the East Coast and the West Coast.
Yeah. Is it colder than the AC in Dubai?
It is colder than the AC in Dubai, depending on the time of the year. But
Yeah. It's pretty cold in here, I'll tell you that. You've been in Dubai for quite some time, right?
Yeah, for about 18 years.
Okay, how's that been?
It's been good. You know, when I came here, I came as a professional working for a big company.
Yeah.
And like a lot of folks, I thought I'd just be here for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then it grew on me. You know, I started getting used to the valet parking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now it's
difficult
like
to leave, right? After that long, you get used to the little things.
It is.
Are you going to stay another 18 years? I mean, what's your timeline look like?
I don't know about that. I think now I have 2 kids in the U.S. right now.
Yeah.
And my youngest is probably going to be there in a couple of years, and I might start following them.
Okay.
But it's been great ever since I've been here.
So you've done a bit of empty nesting. You're getting a taste of the empty nesting.
Yeah. My daughter, my youngest, had a basketball practice a couple weeks ago. And like, I never went to my older kids' practice, but on this Wednesday, I showed up. Her mom was there, and there was like no parents there. And she's like, "What are you doing here?
Yeah.
You know, like you're cramping my style."
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, feeling that empty nester syndrome. The youngest is getting the brunt of it.
I noticed the mug that you brought in. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a proud father of 3 spoiled brats.
Okay.
And I think as I've gotten through my midlife crisis.
By the way, if you're watching, kids, I'm sure you're delighted with that reference.
Well, most of them are in Dubai, you know, with all the amenities. But I think as I've gotten older and wiser, I've started just cherishing my time with my kids. It just flies by.
Nice.
And as an entrepreneur, you don't get a lot of time with them. You know, it just flies by and you're reprioritizing. And I think at this stage of my life, they're just like so important to me. I love hanging out with them.
So you were a dad first before you're an entrepreneur?
Now I am. I think
you
I was an entrepreneur first and then a
Okay.
dad second. If you had asked me like 5 to 10 years ago, but it's flipped now.
So your priorities have flipped, or has something else happened to you?
No, I think my priorities have just flipped. I think as the company's stabilized and I've got some breathing room and there's decent cash flow,
Yeah.
you know, you can
You're
sleep a
making
little
some
bit.
money.
Yeah, you can sleep a little bit better. And And I just love hanging out with the kids. They're so cool. And they're a little bit older now, so they get my jokes, you know, stuff like that. So it's nice.
Nice. I thought I'd match you. I've also got a mug similar. It says best dad ever. My wife got me this mug.
Well, I know you got 2 kids.
I've got 2 young boys. They're little terrors, especially the eldest. You know, when you get to about 2, the whole terrible twosome thing comes up. And
good luck with that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, nothing is easy, nothing is straightforward. But I'm loving every minute of it.
All right, cool.
So how old is your youngest, by the way?
So I have a 10-year-old, and then she's got an older brother who's 14 and an older sister that will turn 18 this month.
Okay, so the 10-year-old is also getting into that kind of weird space, I'm guessing.
She's starting to get a little too cool for school for me.
Makeup
nowadays.
or not yet?
What's that?
She wearing makeup or she wanting to wear makeup?
So her older sister will drop like all this money at Sephora. So I think she's starting to influence her a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm praying she doesn't get influenced. But you know, every time we walk past Sephora, it's just like her head turns. Yeah. And it used to be at toy shops, but now it's at, you know, stuff like it. But she's not into it big time.
Okay. Okay. So if someone asks you, where are you from? What's your initial reaction?
I'd say I was from the States.
Okay.
You know, I think at the core, I feel like I'm an American.
Yeah.
Not very proud of America right now, but I would say I'm an American.
Okay. I mean, what's your take on this region? How do you feel, or how did you once feel about it, and has that changed since you've been here?
Look, I'm really proud, you know, of especially Dubai and the UAE. I feel like the country is like a startup. You know, it's around 50 years old. When I got here 18 years ago, you know, the marina was just being built. You know, I feel like I'm one of those Dubaiers.
Yeah, you're one of those.
Remember back in the days, there was like just sochos and like.
But you're a granddad at this age, right? If you get into your 40s or in your early 50s in Dubai, you're like a grandparent, right?
I feel like it.
Because it's such a young, vibrant city.
And you see all these other kids coming in and you're like, hey, you know.
I remember how it used to be. There used to be no traffic on Sheikh Zayed
Valet
Road.
parking was free at Mall of Emirates back in the days, you know, stuff like
that. Good times. So a question to you. So when you wanted to set up this business, Koita, how old were you and what was your thinking process behind it? So give me a bit of understanding about your background and how you ended up becoming a founder of a company.
So I was a professional most of my life. In fact, I was in the defense business for almost a decade and a half.
Is that a sports related or military related?
Military related.
I thought it was, but I just wanted to be clear.
Okay. And so totally opposite industry. I was in my mid to late 30s at the time when I started the company. And I think there was a couple things that happened. One, I was kind of sick of the rat race in corporate America. I wasn't politically correct, and I was always rubbing my bosses the wrong way. I just felt like I was always an entrepreneur inside. 2, I was going through my midlife crisis, you know, or my second or third one.
What age were you doing midlife?
Like I said, just prior to turning 40.
Okay.
I'd had my third kid was on the way. Yeah. And I just didn't feel right. I think there was a lot of things going on with me personally and professionally. Okay. So I made the jump. And because I was passionate about like healthy living and healthy eating, food was kind of the place that I wanted to look into. Okay. And that's what got me interested in the food business, in the organic food business.
Which we're gonna talk about. There's a lot to talk about. Before I go any further, do you have a safe word? Typically, on my show, I always ask my guests if they have a safe word. They probably will never have to use it, but just in case, is there something that you would want to?
Why don't we say Italy?
Italy?
Yeah.
Okay. My mum's Italian.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. How come you chose Italy?
It's one of my favorite countries. Like I source all my milk from Italy, and I've just come to love it over the years. Every time I go there probably 2-3 times a year. I come back and my pants usually don't fit because I'm eating all the pasta.
Trousers. England, we say trousers.
Trousers. Yeah. You have to correct my English.
No worries.
Where are you from in Italy?
So my mom is from Como. There's actually a little village called Mariano Comense.
What are you doing here, man?
Actually, there was not a lot of business in Como from what I was used to doing. But look, it's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. Yeah. I'd love to go back. So, okay, so your safe word is Italy. Yeah. Let's hope you don't have to use it.
Okay. All right.
Forza. So let's go back to what we were talking about. So it was a culmination of different things that happened to you that made you say, you know what, I'm done. Right? Something needs to change. Yeah. Okay. So what's the first thing that you kind of, what goes through your mind the day you're going to resign? And then you start thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? Like talk to me a little bit about that the mental side of that.
So a couple things. I think number one, I was scared. I was really scared because I'm, giving up this really nice paycheck. In the defense business, I was hanging out at all these nice wine and cheese parties, the Dubai Air Show, and flying around meeting these big,
what a terrible
officials.
Life you had.
Yeah, really, really, really tough place. But, you know, I was complacent and something just didn't feel right. So I think I was like so scared because I'd had a small amount of my life savings, you know, kind of saved up. And I'm going to jump into this new industry that I don't really know a lot about, right? So fear, I think, was one. Two, so you have two emotions. You're also excited, right? You're like, wow, you know, I'm going to do something that I've always dreamed of. And when I look back at what I was really going through right then is I think I just wanted freedom, right? And it wasn't financial freedom. Everyone's like, oh, I want to be rich. I want to do this. I want to do that. I think the freedom is I just wanted to control my destiny, as small as that business was financially. You know, like selling milk versus $250 million defense programs are very different, you know, versus 13 dirham milk.
It's not an obvious link, by the way, can I just say? Right, going from defense contracts or military to milk, it's a bit of a stretch, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the link is I was a parent, and I think the link was I was passionate about healthy eating and healthy living. I think the link is being in whatever business, defense, or if I was real estate or whatever, you just get a sense of the business culture in the region. Yeah. You know, you just understand how things work here a little differently, and most importantly, Dubai's full of opportunities. So a lot of the stuff that's happened in the West hadn't come here. And a lot of people take those proven business models over there and bring them here and adapt them, right? Yeah. So I was one of those people.
Did you have a conversation with someone that helped really push you over the line and give you the confidence to get over that fear that you felt?
I think I had a number of small conversations. I didn't have like that big dramatic one with like someone and they had that amazing quote. You know what I mean?
Hollywood moment. You didn't have that,
I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. Actually, some of the best conversations I had were with entrepreneurs that had failed, because I learned a lot from them. Some successful entrepreneurs, some people in the food business. And ironically, I think one of the biggest drivers were some of my insecurities. You know, like I always felt like I wanted to be a successful entrepreneur like my peers, or I wanted to prove something to someone. From like some of that early childhood stuff was coming out, you know? And I think some of that actually drove me to say, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna take this risk and jump into it.
Do you have siblings?
I have 3 younger brothers, 2 stepbrothers, and 1 real brother. Although I refer to them all as my brothers because we're a lot of
brothers. So growing up, I mean, in Slatcher, I'm guessing very competitive between all of you.
Very competitive. It was a bit of a tough childhood, but very competitive, and I think that helped drive me.
Yeah. And are you close still, your brothers?
Yeah. They're all in Chicago now. Okay. So I'm a little jealous because they're hanging out with my parents all the time and stuff. Yeah. So when I go back to Chicago, it's so fun hanging out with them.
Yeah. So what is what is Koita Foods? Like, explain it to people who aren't aware.
Yeah. So Koita is all about helping families eat healthier at the core of it, right? And I think the pain that I saw is when I was shopping as a parent and I would go to like the food aisle, it was just so confusing. You know, it was like lactose this, nut allergy that, is it organic? I just didn't get it, right? And so what I ended up doing, what I'm really excited about, is that in this region, when I walked into the food aisle, I was just confused as hell, right? And my personality is like simple, straightforward, no bullshit, like what is it? And also I like things to be premium, especially if I'm feeding my kids. So I feel like I've applied like my personality to the brand, right? And so what I want to do is, you know, we've started with milk, but the idea is we want to expand and apply that same MO to other categories, whether it's yogurt, cheese, butter. And that's kind of, if you were to ask me what Koita is, I think that's what it is. And we want it to be fun too.
So what does it stand for? Because basically I'm asking you, what do you stand for? You said you built in your own image. So.
I think straight forward, or keeping it real is another way, premium, and healthy. You know, simple.
Competition in this market, generally around the world, we're in a very pressured sort of economy at the moment. How do you see that playing out? Do you see opportunities for smaller companies, brands to be set up and to flourish, or do you see the big international guys will still hold firm and be able to ride out any potential economic recession?
Yeah, I think no matter what year or decade you're in, there's going to be a continuous evolvement of small companies eating big companies' lunch, right? It's just going to keep happening. Yeah. And I think the biggest advantage, and I am one of those guys who grew, is the biggest advantage we have over big companies is agility. We don't have more money. We don't have as much resources or what have you, but we can listen and move fast. And I feel like, you know, like when the organic market grew here or the lactose-free market or what, we were just able to move faster, you know? And so I think to answer your question, there'll always be room, especially in Dubai, because this is like an entrepreneurial vibe. Everyone, like yourself, you know, everyone's trying to start new things and do new things. So I feel like it's part of the culture here.
Yeah. They call you the chief everything officer. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. Are you A, a workaholic, B, super involved in all elements of the operation and the detail? You know, are you addicted to your job? Is that kind of why they've been given that?
I think
title?
I've evolved as a person over the last decade because I started the company 10 years ago. We launched the brand 7 years ago. I think I was a chief everything officer maybe 7 years ago.
Okay.
And I think as I've grown both personally, like I've kind of learned what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And as we've been able to scale and hire people that are smarter than me in a lot of their, you know, departments and whatnot, I'm not the chief everything officer. I'm like the keeping people happy officer. You know what I mean? You look
very chill to me.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd love to work in your company. You know what I mean? But hang out. You know?
Well, it's usually pretty chill, but you know, it can get tough at times even now. I would say I'm not a workaholic anymore. I think I've gotten, as I said earlier, I've got more balance in my life. I think I've realized that. And by the way, it's interesting, but having a good balance and being a good father helps me be a better CEO and founder. You know, and I think that's happened in my life as I've just matured.
Because you become more relatable, you become more human, effectively, right? People want to work for humans, real people.
That I've noticed that.
It's good insight.
There
we go. So what is for you the most important thing to be a good CEO? What is that one thing that every CEO should have?
So I would answer that question and also say that it changes as you evolve and the company evolves, right? You have to be good at certain things early on. I think at this stage, I used to be like, hey, how do we get the company off the ground? And that was the focus. Then it became financials, right? And then it became, how do I make my employees happy? Because, you know, we've got a really tight-knit family. Like, I feel like I work for my employees, basically. And that's my MO.
Would they feel the same way?
Sometimes, look, at our management team meetings, by the way, we have a majority female management team. They're all moms, and they tell me to go myself all the time. So I've given I feel I'm really happy that I've given them that comfort level to do that. And frankly, it's healthy, you know, to like, you know, versus having shit pent up and blow up in your face later on.
So you encourage that workspace where people can get things off their chest immediately.
It's a very flat,
rather than building it up.
Yeah, it's really flat, super open door.
Nice.
I don't have an office or any desk that's different. We have like shared desk. So like from the feel of the office to how I manage, we're all the same.
So what about the current generation now? Right. So when you're interviewing these 22, 23-year-olds potentially coming into the company, what are the kind of stuff that they are asking you about? Because they ask questions that I never used to ask when I was starting off.
I think it's more about lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, what's the work lifestyle balance? And I think that's especially after COVID and this younger generation. I think that's very important to them.
And do you have more faith in that generation, or do you have less faith in that generation?
Look, I have a lot of faith in good people, right? Every generation has their bad apples and good apples. So there's some total assholes I've met during interviews, and there's some really good people. I think it just depends on who they are. But I feel really lucky at our company. We've been able to weed out some of the bullshit and really find people. For us, it's like, are they intelligent? Do they give a shit about what they're doing in life? And do they want to do something and have impact? And if I've got those three ingredients, all the other stuff doesn't matter. Experience, what school they went to, I don't care. Nice. I'm not going to scrap the whole generation because we found some really good apples.
Nice,
you know?
Nice. Hold on to them.
Yeah.
But excellent answer. Very politically correct.
Do you want to?
Is that the American side? Or is that, you know,
no, it's true. It's actually true.
Nice. Yeah. Look, I've got so as part of my show, I do a bit of an improv section.
Sure.
Right, where I have a bag, and in the bag is a bunch of balls, right?
Okay.
And I'm going to hang them over to you.
All right.
And we're going to read them out, and we'll talk about them.
All right, let's do it.
You haven't seen what's in the bag, right? You have
no
idea.
No.
All right, amazing. So here we go. Let's have some fun with it.
Okay. 3 CEOs you'd love to have over for dinner?
Okay, so some of these questions are very cliche.
Yeah.
Some of them are quite hard hitting. This is a nice, easy start. So, and don't give me the whole Elon Musk.
I was just about to
plus
say
Phil,
Elon Musk.
None of that. So really have a think about it, because if you have 3 people over, so people from past, present, future, people that you want to learn from, understand, or inspired by, who would you have over?
Okay, so like the Chobani yogurt guy.
Okay.
I always thought he had a really good story.
Okay, what's his name and what's the story?
I don't know his full name.
Yeah.
And he's a very famous brand in the U.S. that like took off and became really, really big. They've done a lot for the community, from what I understand. I don't know the business, but I've seen him speak here and there, and I just thought he had a very similar path to something I'd like to replicate.
Okay.
You know, the other CEO who had a bit of an impact on me, I don't know if he knows this, is the CEO of Orgain. It's a sports drinks, healthy drinks company in the U.S. There's a guy named Andrew who is a cancer survivor. He's Egyptian origin, also went to the U.S. and had a very successful company. I think they sold for like $1 billion recently. And he had given me some advice when I met him when he was starting out at a trade show. Yeah. So I'd love to meet him again and say thank you. So that'd be a second person. The third CEO, also actually in the food business, there's a brand called Amy's, all organic out of California. Yeah. So, you know, I think they'd be good because they're very inspiring. They all started from nothing. Yeah. He did one round, I think, and grew to like hundreds of millions of dollars. And I thought that was really commendable. So
you've chosen CEOs from similar industries to yourself.
Because I want to learn.
Similar stories to what you had. But they would also potentially ask you potentially to join. So did you choose them? I'm trying to understand why you chose. Did you choose them because you feel you're like-minded and it's almost like you kind of band together because you've kind of all been through the similar things with the similar types of challenges?
Well, one, I'd want to learn from them. Yeah. I'd want to learn from them because, you know, I also have what I think from the outside is a similar passion. So I thought that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. But it shows a lot about who you are as a person, where you have that humility, where you want to keep learning from potentially competitors or historically people who've been in the similar industries.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a testament to you.
I don't look at other food folks as competition now. I think we're all kind of going through the same thing. Maybe in some parts they're competition, but I really just, to your point, you made a really good point, Lucas. Honestly, I'm always learning. And I'm learning actually from the startups today that are like 4 or 5 people that some of them I mentor, and I'm actually in the conversation. And I'm like, oh, how did you do this? And how did you do that? Because they're really scrappy and creative, you know. And sometimes I forget that because I'm bigger now.
Yeah. Look, it's tough being a CEO. It's not easy. People always look to you to have all of the answers. All of the time. You have to sort of live up to a certain level of, you know, competency, behavioral activity. Yeah. And if you dip a little bit, it's like, oh my God. You know, if he's having a bad day or she's having a bad day as a CEO, it can affect the entire company.
Well, at the same time, I think I've been a lot more vulnerable now. So like, I'll have a shitty day and I'll just tell my staff like, I'm just having a shitty day. Yeah. And I don't, and honestly, in the management meetings, at least at that level, I've just been, and I think the rest of my team lately, we've kind of trained ourselves to just keep it real. Yeah. So sometimes we're overwhelmed, you know? And so we have this like thing at the management meeting where we have a one-word opener and we go around and everyone just says, and sometimes like, you know, a couple of weeks ago, my sales guy was like, I'm not motivated, you know, and we're like, holy shit, what happened? You know, so we get into it. So to your point, I think I was like that maybe 5 years ago, but now I've learned to be just a lot more vulnerable because it's actually a more profitable way of running the business because you uncover shit before it turns into...
But also being vulnerable brings people in. And when you bring people in, you create that unity, that togetherness, that culture, which is so important. Exactly. Let's do another ball, yeah? All right. Pop it on the table.
This.
Yeah, you like it,
liking this new game here.
Did you didn't think you were going to be dipping into a bag of balls?
No, I didn't. What makes a great CEO? You know, I like my philosophy of I feel like you work for your employees. Because right now, attracting talent, retaining them, managing them, leading them, is my biggest challenge. You know, so it's not politically correct. It's actually a profitable way of running your business. I feel you also have to have a nice balance of risk management. You know, because every day you've got limited time, money, and cash flow, right? And as you're growing, you got to place your bets, whether it's in a geography, a product, a person, and you have to have common sense, you know. And I think also what makes a great CEO is understanding that self-confidence is a skill.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I was really scared, and I was like, shit, man, am I made out for this or not? You know, it's kind of like black or white.
You have those days.
I do. You do.
Do you still have them now?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's still things that you're scared of, because as the business evolves, you get thrown into new shit every day that you don't know about.
So how do you overcome that fear when you're having those self-doubts?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've now learned a way to do it, right? And I think when I have a lack of self-confidence in a certain area, now I look back at my history, right? That's a great thing to remind myself that, hey, I can do it, right? We almost went out of business like 3-4 times, you know, during the course of our growth. And I'm like, well, I got over that time. So that's one thing, is I look at my history. Number two is I demand plan it. So as an entrepreneur, you know what I've done? It's a little trick in my head, but like, I'm like, look, there's some nasty stuff that's going to happen once a quarter. Yeah. And there's a really bad thing that's going to happen once a month. And so like this month, something happened. And so it was really weird. I was just like, okay, this is this month's challenge. Yeah. Right. And so in my mind, I'm like, there's going to be some shit that happens.
Yeah. So you're anticipating it and you're compartmentalizing it at the same time. Because if you put everything that could go wrong, let's say in a year together, it's extremely overwhelming. Yeah. But if you sort of break it down month by month or quarter by quarter, and you think, right, there is going to be a challenge, we're ready for it. I like that.
And then I have a daily reminder. So I made, this is, you know, my friends give me a lot of shit for this, but I made a little band saying I can and I will. And it just, I need that little reminder sometimes. Like, I can do anything and I will get it done. So there's like the little tricks and stuff, but I think the biggest thing is now I've built up, because I've gone through so much stuff, both personally and professionally, and gotten through it, I have the confidence that I'll just figure it out.
So in your personal life, what's the toughest thing that you've been through?
I think
you can say Italy at any point.
I think my divorce was tough, because when I jumped into the entrepreneurship game, it took a lot out of me. I mean, the work-life balance is impossible when you're starting something, depending on the scale and whatnot. It was really tough. So it had a big effect on my personal life. It affected my marriage. It affected my kids. And I always had this like thing in my head. I'm like, look, I'm going to work my ass off, make a lot of money, and then I'll spend time with the family. To a certain extent, some of that's happened, but you know, I don't think I was a great spouse or a father during those formidable years, because I didn't know how to handle it. And I think now I've kind of learned a lot about myself after that. And I've just become a better father. I've become a better partner. Like my ex and I are really, you know, knock on wood. Yeah. You don't have any wood around here, man. But
I've got a giant plant behind you.
But we've got a really good relationship, and I think it's because we've kind of realized what we went through.
Are you looking for love now?
I don't know.
By the way, I don't know anyone. So it's not
Am I being set up on the show? No, I mean, right now my priorities are actually my kids and my business, and I'm just in a really good place right now.
But if something comes along, you're not going to say no.
I probably won't say no.
Yeah, next ball. You want to pick it up?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If niche is the new mass, what are the dangers?
So,
that's a tricky question.
So let me explain. So, there are more and more niche products that are being created, right? Or brands, and that they're becoming more and more mainstream. What are the dangers of that happening? Because the reason why they were created in the first place was to drive that nicheness, to drive that sort of place in the market.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're starting out, you have to go after a niche, because you don't want to compete with the big guys. You know, so when we launched organic milk when there was just one other product there. There wasn't 80. When we launched lactose-free, there wasn't a lot of lactose-free players. So we're always going after niches. I think the question is to make sure that niche isn't a fad, but it's actually something sustainable. I think that's the real important question, because you don't want to launch to a fad, right? And so I've seen a lot of stuff come out, and you know, it's really hot one day, and that company's getting a lot of press or valuation or what have you, and then it disappears overnight. So you have to kind of like know the difference, or you have to be agile enough to leverage that niche to build something, but then to latch on to something that's more sustainable. I think that's what I think of when you.
So how do you keep that sustainability factor on a business or on a
the
brand?
number one thing is to listen to your consumers. As cliche as that sounds, we don't, in the back in the days, we didn't have money to do focus groups.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know, but Koita did like hundreds of coffee mornings with moms. So I would go, we'd sponsor coffee, and we'd talk to moms and ask them what they want. And we got such great proprietary primary research, and we just kept listening to what the market wanted to buy.
Yeah.
And if you keep hearing something more and more, and for over a long period of time, you know that's not a fad.
Yeah.
It's something real. You know,
have you been to the supermarket, the aisles, and sort of
I was there
done
just
those mystery shopping?
I was
and
there
asked
just
people?
this morning before I came
No
here.
way.
Yeah, I had to pick up the milk.
So you did spin class, you said this morning, right?
Spin.
So you did spin, then you went to the supermarket.
I walked through a supermarket. Yeah.
Wow.
On the way here, and yeah, I still look at the aisles, and what I find really interesting, and I must come off like a creepy stalker, is I love watching people walk into the milk aisle and like kind of see what happens and how they look at stuff, especially new. Some people are like, I want Koita. Some people are like, I want the competition. Some people are like looking and trying to figure it out. And that, I'm so excited. I've got so many things
running through my mind. So have you ever gone behind someone going, Koita, Koita? Have you ever had something like that?
The Koita.
Yeah. I mean, literally behind them or next to them.
My sales will soon go like this.
There's some creepy guy who's been found in the supermarket.
The coolest thing I saw once is this mom went through the aisle, and she was like kind of trying to figure it out. And she had a 4-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And our packaging, my daughter designed my packaging.
No
so Serena
way.
helped me come up with the kind of cartoonish cow.
Nice.
She inspired it.
Very nice.
Because we learned that the target market was kids, right? So why wouldn't a kid design the? So I saw this like girl just gun for the Koita pack.
Yeah.
And like she grabbed it like,
oh wow.
Yeah, and the mom was like, oh shit, I gotta buy that. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So that kind of made me happy. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff that you learn when you're in the aisles. And
have you given any profits to your daughter based on her packaging?
They're getting like everything, man. I'm like, they're gonna bleed me dry. You know, like I have a daughter in the U.S. right now, and her Deliveroo charges or whatever she uses there is like just dinging on my credit card all the time. Yeah,
it's the joys of being a parent.
Yeah, wait till you get there. You better start saving now.
Yeah. Very good. Let's do another ball, mate.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay, quality product or company profit? Oh man, that's easy.
Wait, hold on. You got to remove the politically correct American, right? Because at the end of the day, you're a CEO. You've got people, you've got shareholders, you've got employees to pay. Company profit, without it, the company falls apart. Yeah,
I would say, look.
Or do you want to just be known as guys who create quality product, but not necessarily with the company profit?
Yeah, I would say that you can't make a sustainable profit without a quality product. Like you have to have.
Is that true?
It's totally true.
There's so many industries with substandard products, but they reach economies of scale and they're able to sort of maintain because of that. But the actual quality of the product itself is questionable.
I don't think it's sustainable. I mean, especially look in the food business where your target market is families. We're like, our motto again was like, if it's not good enough for my kids, it's not good enough for yours. And so for example, we have an expensive product. We're on the premium side. We're sometimes 10 to 20, 30% more, but that's because we have more milk fat. Our cows are from, we have European grade milk. Our almonds are, everything's organic or free range.
You got to feed the farmers, right? The farmers got to make
exactly.
Their money.
So especially in our target market, they want the premium, and if you're cutting corners, it just is not sustainable. So I would challenge the question and say you can't have either or. You gotta have some or a quality service, to make it work.
Could you have a quality product and not make good money?
It depends on how you manage the business, but yeah, if you go too extreme, like if you're for example. If you're trying to make a product for the top of the pyramid, for someone who wants like this utopian milk, there'll probably be like 4 or 5 people that can afford it.
Yeah.
So we kind of like the place that's called mass premium, which is
Mastige.
It's
like prestige, but mass.
Yeah, it's not too expensive.
Yeah.
So to a certain extent, you gotta find kind of like what's the right balance.
So give me another brand from another industry that you kind of aspire to when it comes to positioning within the market space.
I like Mercedes-Benz. Because Mercedes,
that's premium, right?
It's premium, but they've also gone mass, right? There are Mercs that you can buy that are not as expensive as, that's 500. They've done that. I like Volkswagen. Actually, maybe that's a little bit more known for quality, reliability.
yeah.
Probably a bit more
Value
mass
for money,
market.
great value for
Yeah,
money.
yeah. In the car, I mean, I just bought a Volkswagen, so that's what I'm thinking about.
Kids these days don't seem to want to care about so much about cars. They just care about mobility, right? They just care about getting from point A to point B.
They can Uber.
How they get there, they don't care so much.
Yeah.
Our generation was much more about the brand and building that. Do you see that being applied also to your industry when it comes to milk?
In what sense?
People don't care so much about the brand name. They care more about the nutrients that sit behind it or the story that sits behind it.
Look, I think it's a combination of both, right? So when we weren't well known, people were really like, hey, what's this brand Koita? What do they stand for? Is it, higher fat content? Is it really organic? What's the country of origin? All those things. And then what happens to the consumer is we have a very sticky consumer base here, is that they just learn to trust the brand. That's phase 2. Yeah. And now, like when we launch into lactose free or we launch into almond and oat milk, they didn't have to question the ingredients because they're like, look, we know this family is going to put out good stuff. Yeah. So it evolves, the question evolves. Okay. Does that make sense?
It does, it does. How many types of milk are, if I went now right now to the supermarket.
There's a lot.
So excluding Koita in general, how many different types of variants of milk
There's
are there?
tons. So, I mean, there's 3 kind of big categories. So there's dairy, right? Or what we call organic dairy for us. There's lactose-free dairy. So people who have lactose, my son's lactose intolerant.
Me too.
Oh, great, great. So we have a lactose-free dairy range. And then we have plant-based milks. It's mostly almond and oat is the majority of that business. Those are kind of the 3 areas. And then you have the conventional milks, like regular non-organic milk. And then there's fresh and shelf-stable. So listen, if
you want to have a bowl of cereal, you're just like, okay, what do I put in my bowl of cereal?
Yeah, it's really difficult. And the answer nowadays is everyone has different dietary requirements, and everyone has to find their perfect milk. It's kind of that's a plug for our new tagline, by the way. I just slid that in there. You know?
Coming soon. Very nice, very nice.
So it's confusing, and we try to deconfuse it.
Let's do another ball. I think we've got maybe 2 more in there left.
All right.
Let's try and finish both.
All right, I'll just take both of them out. Right.
There we go.
Personal brand choices: more stick or more twist?
Okay, so are people now more likely? They're more likely to stick with their brands, or they're more likely to change brands?
Or more twist?
Yeah. So are you likely to switch brands now, or are you more likely to stay with what you love?
Right. It depends. The milk space is pretty sticky. I don't know if when you were growing up, but like the type of milk that was in our house, when my parents bought the milk, they just kept buying the same thing over and over. Especially like lactose free, which is kind of medical. You don't want to change that. So I would say, look, the question totally depends, right? Like right now, there's a lot of interesting things happening in the region, and people are like, we want to buy more local. We're a local brand, and so I think it depends on the wins. It depends on how the company's doing, and it depends on the type of application. Yeah. So again, not trying to be politically correct. I'm just being honest. It totally depends on what's happening.
No, I'm with you. Did you watch the campaign a long time ago in the States, Got Milk? Do you remember that campaign?
Yeah, I remember.
Were there any ads when you were young as a kid you watched it? Like,
I mean,
wow, it sort of sits with you.
The Got Milk and the milk mustache stuff, really resonated to me. I think Wendy's in the U.S. was a burger place, and there was like this old lady that would say, "Where's the beef?" Yeah. As like, hey, where is the beef? Like in these hamburgers now. Yeah. So I mean, there's just been a lot of like fun cavalier campaigns, and so I like that stuff. I think it keeps it lighthearted and fun.
So there is an opportunity to capture more share of market. Oh yeah. Get people to switch. Yeah. But once they're on your brand, they're also likely potentially to switch based on that. So what will keep them with Koita? What will keep them, I think, choosing your brand over others?
Consistency of quality, of distribution, by the way, making sure you're always in stock. Those are simple things that you think of, but in the food business, you got to be there. So distribution, consistently in quality, you got to be talking to and interacting with the consumer. So we're like on Instagram doing a lot of interesting things, staying relevant. Those are all kind of the basics. Yeah. To
do that, you got to keep asking questions, keep doing focus groups, keep going to the supermarket aisles and gathering that intelligence.
We're always learning. And so we're tweaking things like on our plant-based milks, we're reducing the number of ingredients every year. We're trying to get to like 2 to 3 ingredients for every milk.
It's going to sound really silly, but how do you make milk from a plant?
Well, it depends on the plant, but it's usually a mix of water and extracting some of the nutrients from that nut or oat or coconut and mixing it in. And everyone's got like a different formula.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the big thing on plant milks is the number one application is coffee. So you got to make it froth. So there's a lot of science that goes into it.
So your business is it's geared primarily B2C, but there's a B2B component, I'm guessing.
Well, actually, the majority of the business is B2B.
Is it? Okay.
So we sell to big retailers. We sell to distributors.
See my surprise face? Oh, you see.
Yeah.
Like that.
Good one.
Yeah.
We sell to a lot of distributors like in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, or in Singapore and in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So that's B2B. And we sell here to like Gibson's, Amazon, Carrefour Online, all those online folks. So those are businesses, but we're talking and marketing to our consumers all the time and engaging with them.
Nice. Right, last one. What have you got there?
Local adoption versus established international brands.
Local versus international, right? Yeah. So sort of the local hero versus the Goliath, the international Goliath.
I think of two aspects of the business. Number one is local production, and I think of local brand are the two things. I think with the logistics, with COVID and everything, people are trying to source materials that are a little bit closer to their regions. So we're in Europe, we're not, halfway across the world, which is a little bit better. But we're looking at, local opportunities. Two, brands, like we're a UAE homegrown brand. So I think we have our finger on the pulse of the people in the region because we're here. Our headquarters is in Dubai. And I think that's more and more important, especially with what's happening nowadays. I've seen huge, shifts in buying behavior because of what's happening with regional conflicts or international conflicts.
Has there ever been a better time to be local?
I think we're at sort of a high point right now. I don't think there's a good or a bad time. You just got to figure out how you're going to manage it and deal with it.
How do you ride it, or how do you negate it, depending on your perspective?
Yeah, we've always been very local. Like, we engage locally. We donate a lot locally. We just feel it because we're here.
So going back to when you first started creating this business with all that fear, working, making a lot of money, working in defense, what would you say to yourself if you could go back to that time where you are now? What kind of messages would you give your much younger midlife crisis self?
I would probably tell myself that it's going to be okay, that you will get through this, because there are some really tough moments, when you're starting out. You're all alone. Like, you are all alone. Like, everyone. I mean, you got some of your closest allies that are talking shit about you. You got buyers that are dumping on you. You're small. You don't have any money. I mean, it was a really, people, when they look at entrepreneurship in the beginning, they watch a couple episodes of Shark Tank. They get a little bit of PR. They see the glitz and the glass, and they don't know that you're all alone, and you're like in tears at times, and you're almost out of business, and there's a lot of peer pressure. And I'm just so happy I went through it. And I think I would just say, you're going to be fine. Like, I would just reassure myself that I'll be okay.
And it's really important to give yourself those opportunities to give yourself a pat on the back, because there's going to be so many people out there who are going through what you went through in the past, who feel a little bit isolated, who feel a bit lonely, who want to do something different. And they have this, such a strong sense of fear that they can't necessarily do it. So, the fact that you've been able to do it and you can look back, but for those who are currently going through it now, what is that message? What is that insight that you would share with them?
Well, I would say, look, entrepreneurship is not for the faint-hearted. And like everything in life, if you are interested in it, take some steps. Don't jump into the pool. You can take baby steps. So like, for example, I joined 2 startups as employee number 4 and employee number 8, and was with one founder who failed and one who did okay. And that gave me a taste of what it was like, I worked at very large companies like Boeing, and I worked at very small companies. So like, I got a lot of experience. When I started the company, I didn't launch a new brand. I was distributing other food brands to learn from them how to do it, right? And then I launched the brand 3 years later. So I would just say, it's not all or nothing. Yeah. Take baby steps. Don't think go big or go home. Nice. Start small, and don't let your ego make decisions. In fact, I have no ego left anymore. I have daughters, so I have no ego, right? So like, you know, just start small and go easy on yourself is what I would say.
Amazing. And for the future, what does that look like for you?
It's, you know, I'm so excited. You know, we've come a long way. I've got a board now. I mean, even though I own 100% of the company, I got a board to like kind of tell me, to keep me in check.
Yeah.
And it's all about focus, and I'm still learning so much from them. And, you know, I think sky's the limits right now, and I really love what I do.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bright future. You'll probably start seeing some new categories, you know, in the near future. And that to me is very exciting too.
Just one thing I want to just pick up on. You mentioned obviously with your daughters and your management team are all women. Women have played a strong and active part in your life.
Yeah.
With you. So what is there something in that? Is there something that, is that coincidence, or is that something that you naturally gravitate towards?
Well, it almost can't be coincidence if you think about it, right? I feel like maybe two things. Number one, our consumer base is moms. So who better to build a company and go after this consumer base than those moms, right? I think is one. Number two, I've just found that I think women are really like a hidden gem here in the region. You know, I think they should be put in more leadership roles. Their way of looking at things is still so different and I think very refreshing. If you don't have a lot of women on your leadership team, something's wrong. You're missing out on something because they're very, very, they're better than the guys in some cases, you know, in a lot of roles.
Yeah, you're definitely ready for love. There'll be a lot of applicants after that. Mustafa, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you. You're a great guy. You sound like a fantastic leader. I would want to be part of your organization.
Beware what you wish for.
Yeah. No, I sincerely wish you all the very, very best, and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, thanks. This was fun. Appreciate it.
Take care.